Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to planet Earth. So, I'm going to continue talking about collective identities, and I really want to talk about this is like the key one that's sort of like it's been playing out in my life, experiencing this collective identity that revolves around spirituality. Um, and it's been something that it's very, very current for me, like busting out of this one. um so how should we look at this? So you find spiritual identities in religion, but also kind of in quasi religion, outside of religion, like in cults, and that's it's all a bunch of labels, but they're all doing the same thing. Like, no matter what umbrella you put your spiritual coming togetherness under, you're still creating a spiritual identity. So for me, I was always spiritual, but then came, and church was like there. We went to church regularly enough, I think. It wasn't a huge thing, but yeah, through my life. And then when I was 13, I think, in Christian, Church of England Christian, you get confirmed. And so I went through this confirmation process, which is a more focused sort of, it's designed to get you focusing on spirituality through the Bible and everything through the Christian church. And I got involved with the youth fellowship, and I really, really enjoyed it because, it was the first time I was coming together with other people and sharing in spirituality. And so it was a great experience. I loved the singing. I loved the joy in, the other teenagers and young adults there. It was a beautiful experience. But there just sort of came a point where I started to sort of do the things that are not as acceptable to, under the rules of Christian religion. Like, I began to have homosexual feelings and so on, and that was never going to fit into this organization, to this collective. And I just began drifting away, and I remember just talking with my dad about it, and he said to me, because I said, can I still be spiritual without being in the church? And Dad said to me that, the church is wherever you are. You bring the church with you, in every relationship that you have and everywhere that you are. And it was good. That was, such a great and wise piece of advice, and it just stuck with me. It was a beautiful, beautiful gift to give me, and it set me free. Then I kind of went into the wilderness for a couple of decades. And once I began to emerge from that wilderness, I once again sort of began to go on my own independent spiritual quest, which, it's kind of fun, the independent spiritual quest, because, this magic just comes from anywhere. You just suddenly, some extraordinary person comes into your life, or another one, and, it's kind of, it's fun. It's fun. And then I got into all the new agey sort of stuff, crystals and joining like galactic federation groups where, I was beginning to sort of get the idea that, maybe I'm not from Earth, but, it was kind of crazy stuff. It was, yeah, really, really out there. And then sort of, into the whole Earth Mother sort of thing, like, because I was up in hippie land. And so, yeah, it was all expressions under the New Age sort of guise. And I found bits and pieces that were great, and it was fun because it was just so much to explore. I really sort of explored myself and others through that journey. But then, life really hit a difficult point and that would be maybe 10, 12 years ago, 2012, when the end of the world was going to happen. And it did happen, but it began again. Yeah, and then yeah, just, I just experienced yet another difficult relationship, more than difficult, awful, traumatic. And I just cast my hands up to God and I said, I don't get it. I don't get it. I can't, I don't trust myself in relation with other people. I don't trust other people. Can you help me, please? And then began, the real path. When I say real path, because it's when I found the true teachers who were going to help me on the path that I was calling for and that I've stayed on since, which is with the Ascended Masters. That eventually led me to teachings that have come through Kim Michaels, and those teachings, they were just like this lifeline, just an absolute lifeline that really sort of just, helped me so much, and doing, invoking light, and it really just transformed my life and my psychology rapidly, because, the power was now in my hands, in my mind. I could take charge of my life and not just wait for things to change. Like I just, anyway, it worked. It's worked, and it continues to work for me, these teachings, because these teachings are coming from Ascended Masters, who are beings who have transcended every bit of psychology every one of us here on earth struggles with, so they can help us find our way out of it. And it's a very dynamic thing. We don't have to wait for, a specific teaching to help us to resolve something. We can just do it right here, right now, anytime. You don't have to wait for Sunday for church to happen. You don't have to wait for your psychologist appointment. Like, Gautama Buddha, help me now, help me see what I'm not seeing. Mother Mary, just show me the immaculate vision of myself. Like, seriously, just ask these things and they come immediately. So where was I going? Talking about, like, the collective identities. I've sort of touched on it a little bit, like with the Christian religion, the New Age collective identity. That was very, very sort of loose, very loose, yeah, I don't know. There was lots of expressions in there and I don't really feel like describing them all. But I do want to come to, there came a point when I was just independently working through with these teachings and through Kim. And there came a point where, I wanted to start talking with other people who, sort of were on a similar spiritual path. And I reached out to Kim and he pointed me in the direction of an Ascended Master students group on Facebook. And that was great because, finally I got to start, just, putting myself out there, and I began to build connections. I also was invited to join like a little WhatsApp chat group with some other spiritual people. And, I just began to build the connections that I wanted to. And I got really, into the community, involved. And I was conducting all of these interviews with people, just really putting myself out there. And that's sort of how I am. I'm a bit of a put myself out there kind of person, really sort of, yeah, let's do it. And but so in the group, quite often many of us, I was one of the main people to do it, but there were others too, like, where we'd just write about something that was going on inside of us, some sort of whatever it might be, and then people would hop on and start to, engage in a discussion about whatever you were talking about. And there were often many times where I felt sort of this incredible discomfort with the responses that were happening to me, because it was, like it was people sort of almost thinking that they had, they're seeing something they're seeing the speck in my eye, but not the beam in their own eye, like they were sort of trying to take the master's teachings and use that to get me to psychologically resolve myself. And And I began to feel increasingly uncomfortable with that. Like I felt like, if I challenged it, I'd get challenged back, and it was kind of like, you just had to be, if you react to that challenge, then there's something wrong with you. And there was just like this subtle status quo was woven into the fabric, became woven into the fabric of this organization. And there was this turning point early this year when I experienced a massive trauma. I've talked about it in many of the most recent videos, but a tree fell on my bus. It was just horrendous. I went into total shock and trauma, and it sustained for a few weeks. It was a very, very difficult experience. But when it first happened, and I was freaking out. Like, it was very, very frightening and terrifying experience. And I just had this impulse, like, take some photos of the bus, because I knew I needed spiritual support. I just knew I need people, invoking light, praying for me. Like, I need someone to hold the balance, because I got nothing. In fact, I'm in deficit right now, and I need some help. So so I took some photos of my bus, and I was about to post it, and I was thinking, oh, if I post it in the group, then people can invoke light for me. But just really instantaneously, I saw immediately that if I did that, people were going to hop on and say, oh, maybe you should look at this aspect of your psychology or that. And when you're in trauma, it's kind of like, nah, screw all that. Like, it's just so outside of the realm of, like, you can't just calmly look at your psychology. You're in survival mode. And so I just thought, no, I'm not going to get what I need there. The love that I need, the love and support and care and compassion that I need, it's not going to be there. I just saw it really, really clearly. And so I posted it on my just regular Facebook timeline. And the love and support came from all sorts of directions. Like, a lot of the beautiful people I know from the community were invoking light for me and holding a space. And then also there were just people who don't do these decrees and everything, who were doing the same thing, prayers and love and kindness and everything. What I needed, it came. And that's what I needed. I just needed people to help me to get through this, and they did. And thank you for your support. And very quickly afterwards, I just suddenly realized, like, when I just had that sense of, like, oh, there's no love. And I didn't mean there's no love in people or anything, but as a entity, I could see that this space was void of love. It was all analytical. It was all very, very mental, and it wasn't a pure, innocent space. It had become, it's almost like, the mindset of many, many people working on their psychology had built up this beast, that it was all, everything people were saying, most of the things people were saying were technically correct and everything, but when the love's not there, then it doesn't help. It doesn't help. And also, it really doesn't help. I'm very firm now on this, realizing that it doesn't help to try to influence somebody else and their psychology. I think I'm really learning, like, because I used to do that for sure. So I'm very forgiving of anyone who does it. But I'm very aware when, if I see something going on in someone else's psychology now, like, I butt out. And I just talk with them and be with them, and I can see what's going on, but I let it be. Like, I think I can draw boundaries, to sort of, not let them push their psychology on me. And that's a good way to sort of, it's sort of, it's all about setting these boundaries now. It's kind of slightly different approach. but I don't get involved and say, hey, you know, I can see this in your psychology, or maybe you have to look at this aspect of your identity or whatever it might be. Like, I just allow it and everything. Whereas I'm using this space to sort of, you know, to say it all as a general, this is what I'm learning at the moment. And what I'm seeing, and I said this in that last collective identity video about gender and women, it's the same thing. The moment you come together in the name of Jesus Christ, in the name of Allah, in the name of the ascended masters, whatever you're coming together with, there's going to be, like, you know, then these little threads and layers that sort of get built in onto this structure. So in the case of this community, the ascended masters have been releasing teachings that are very, you know, they're very based on resolving psychology. They release teachings from other angles as well. They release teachings through sciences and or, you know, ideas, I should say, you know, like just through humanities. You know, they'll come in all sorts of different directions, but this one was it's very psychology based. Okay, so immediately, you know, you've got one structure in there. This is about psychology. Where's the heart in there? You know what I mean? And, you know, and then it was just taking all, you know, the tenets of the teachings and sort of, you know, like the masters said this, the masters said that. And it's like, oh, really? Like, you know, it's like quoting the Bible when you say the masters say this, like, you know, it's like saying, oh, in Leviticus, blah, 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 it says this. Like, you can take words and get them to mean whatever you want them to mean, you know, like it's not creative doing that. You know, creative is thinking for yourself and, you know, really going there. So, you know, what I could see and what I can see is that a beast, a collective beast, was formed in that organization too. And I think it's inevitable. I really, really do. I don't see how it's possible to come together to identify with a collective sort of label or group or whatever. I don't know how it's possible to maintain your authenticity and be a part of that. See, when I left that group, I didn't feel like I was escaping. I didn't feel like I was reacting. I just felt like, oh, I want to be me. I want to be myself, and I want to have genuine, authentic connections. And I just knew it's not possible there. I mean, why try to change something that is the way it is? You know, you just move on and leave. And so now, you know, I'm very much on my own independent, authentic, mystical path, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the, you know, dynamism of it, and just, you know, living it through myself rather than how anyone else thinks I should live it, and not sort of putting this subtle layer on myself to sort of survive and to, you know, fit into the status quo of a spiritual group anymore. I can just be me, and I'm more than that. But, you know, but I'm still connected with the masters, and the masters don't stop me from being myself. So I think it's okay. Like, nothing is permanent on this earth. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with going into a group, and you can learn a lot about yourself, you know, with, you know, going into a group environment, into a collective environment. But also, you don't have to stay there. You can move on when you're ready, when it's time to go, because, you know, it's like wearing the same clothing forever. Like, you know, you don't have to do that. You're allowed to get changed. Put on something else, put on some robes next, you know, and a dress and a crown, and, you know, then take that off and, you know, just go nude, whatever. Like, just enjoy the change of life. We don't have to sort of be beholden to anything. There's nothing wrong with that, and it doesn't say there's something wrong with your psychology just because you decide it's time to move on. Like, because, you know, The crowd, the people often will point their finger and say, see, she's having a reaction, he's having a reaction, and like, really? How do they know? Okay, with that, I'm going to say goodbye.